Do you ever feel like you're just watching the world go by? Like, even when you're doing things, when you're in a situation where you're forced to be the participant, it doesn't feel like you're participating. It feels like you're watching other people participate and then just kind of existing there. You know, even when I've been the most active participant in social scenarios or other kinds of scenarios, it always feels like I'm playing a part. Like, the words that I'm using are authentic, or the ideas behind them, but something about the act itself doesn't feel that way. And it's almost like I avoid thinking about it, but I can't. I can't avoid thinking about it. The thought always just comes back into my head that the act of doing the thing in itself feels inauthentic. It feels like I'm just watching everything. It doesn't feel like I'm doing things. It feels like I'm watching things. And I've felt this way since I was a little kid, where like when I was a little kid, I was much more sensitive than I am now. But I was still pretty emotionally cold. I was still pretty detached. Um, but I would cry more, and I felt more emotional. Um, and it's weird thinking about it because even back then I felt this strange feeling like I was just an actor. Like when I would talk to people and present myself, I wasn't being genuine. I was presenting a facade, and it wasn't like I I wasn't taking anything from someone, I wasn't giving anything back either. It was like I existed in a kind of void where I controlled what the mask was. I put the mask on, but I wasn't there. I was just observing what reality for everyone else is. I feel like normal people, they're engaged in the things that they do. They feel as if they have a place that they're authentic, what they say is authentic, and that they're just moving. That life for them is about action. And when I look at like my career on YouTube, my various hobbies, I too am endowed in this kind of action. It's my work, and it feels real to do my work. But when I look at my interactions with other people, even when I can get those reactions like, wow, you're really charismatic, or you sound like an extrovert or something, to me it just doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like what I'm doing is honest. Um, Even if what I'm saying is like totally true, and most of the time it doesn't feel like it is. It feels like I'm just watching everything happen in the back of my head. Um, and I think it's one of the reasons why I prefer spending time alone so much, is that when I get to spend time alone, there isn't this back and forth feeling where um, I'm looking at what's happening and I'm an observer. It's more like I can be an observer in my own space, and I'm free to do that. And it's interesting, I was talking on the live stream yesterday about the idea of getting into a relationship, that continually I've retained the sentiment that it would be too much work. I had this video, I think it was like 6 months ago, 5 months ago. It was a while ago. It was called like I literally don't understand porn, and most of the video was just me sitting there going, every relationship I've been in, I haven't wanted to spend time with the person, even if like I loved them, which was a rare occasion. It's really, really hard for me to feel love for anybody. But if I did, I still didn't want to spend time with them very often just because I wanted to be on my own. And I sort of posited this idea that if I were to be in a relationship, I would want one where I was given my space. I had this conversation with this guy, K.E. Anderson on one of No Thank You streams. This was like months and months ago. It was a while ago. I doubt he even still watches my channel because he doesn't like my videos. But on the stream, he was telling me, Star, what is this balance that you talk about with getting into relationships with people? You should enjoy your time while you're young now, and you don't need this balance. You need to commit fully. And I've tried to commit fully to people before in a romantic sense, and I've just never liked it. And maybe I'll regret it someday if I start to like it all of a sudden, but I'm not the type of person who regrets things. I don't think I've regretted anything, ever. That's just not how I operate. Maybe I'll have some kind of magical revelation and fundamentally change the way that I experience emotions, but throughout all of the time that I have existed, I have stayed completely consistent in the fact that I don't regret things, and that I also prefer solitude. I just do. And when I explain this to people, they look at me and they go, huh? How could you prefer solitude? How could you want to do that more? The thing is that it's not the expense of myself. It's not at the expense of my own pleasure or my own internal happiness. It's just something that I do. Like, people have asked me, why don't I talk to the kids at my school? Why is the only way that I've enjoyed school been to come into that one room classroom and just sit on the computer all day? And the reason is simple. I don't have to interact with anybody. I can interact with people theoretically. I know how to. I know um, how to present myself as like a salesman kind of persona. But in any interaction that I have with just about everybody, it doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel real. It feels like I'm observing myself in the third person view, and it's bizarre. I never really had the words to describe that feeling before. I've always gone back and forth between saying that, I put on a mask and I on a persona, or I've gone back and forth and saying, well, maybe I don't, because it's just so confusing. But when I realized that it's like I'm observing, that it's like I'm seeing it in third person, it made so much more sense. Like, and thinking back to that stream that I did, both of them, where I had that conversation and where I talked about this general lack of romance on my part, um, it's made me understand that, like, I just experience emotions completely different from everyone else. And in an attempt to explain that, you're going to get a lot of hairy eyebrows, a lot of people not really understanding what you mean, but it's like when I say that I don't feel loneliness, people look at that and they go, huh? How could you not feel loneliness? It's because I don't desire to have close relationships. I can, it's theoretically possible, but for me, talking to people comes more as like a study. It's like I talk to these people and then I'm able to sort of see what they're about. I'm able to understand where they're coming from, and I'm able to get a better perspective into who they are. But I find the vast majority of people boring, besides the people who I've regularly spoken to throughout the years. And those are the people who've just decided to put up with me. Most people get bored of me and then they go away, or I get bored of them and then I go away. I'm not super consistent with how much I talk to people, but the people who I have continued to be around, it's like listening to the things that they say makes me feel like I'm learning something. Like like the Shonen Ronin people, like talking to them makes me feel like there's something that I'm learning. There's something about the human experience or conceptual things that I that I'm gaining from these people. There's a kind of support system that's in place from them, and I just I just wish that, like, when I talk to other people, I don't even I guess I don't even wish it. It's not like it's not like a pious wish that I'm just sitting here and then going, man, I wish I could. It's it's just a general confusion. Like it's a malaise. I don't understand how someone could end up this way. How someone could end up viewing life and relationships in such a sterile, cold kind of fashion. That's what I don't understand. And it's like, for most people, in order to seem entertaining, or in order to um, be an item in a conversation, you need to present a little bit more. You can't just be, sterile and laid back and observe things, to where I kind of have to present myself as an extrovert, even though I'm not. And in the pursuit of doing that, I still feel like an observer anyway, because the more extroverted behavior doesn't feel authentic at all. Um, this kind of manufacturing of a mask just to be able to have consistent interaction, it confuses me. I don't know why my brain functions like this, but I always find myself preferring solitary activity. I think that's why I've been alone for so long. Um, and the idea of being in a relationship with someone, if I wasn't allowed to have my time to myself, then it would feel like some of my most fundamental rights would be encroached upon. Um, and I don't like that idea. That doesn't that doesn't sound like something I could participate in. And I don't run out here like the MGTOW guys. Where what the MGTOW guys tend to say is that they'll go, I don't ever want to date a woman because I'll be free and I'm gonna drive my car in the woods and stuff. And they say that, but they don't really think it. A lot of them, they say that and then they talk about how evil women are, and then they come home and they go, man, I wish I had a GF. And I don't think that kind of mindset is right for those people, because it's clear that they want a girlfriend. It's just that they failed so much. Maybe it's not their fault. Sometimes it is, but they've had so many bad experiences that, they go, well, I'll just never have a relationship and I'll be proud of it. But saying that they're proud is like a mask. It's like its own kind of way of dealing with the trauma, of trying to justify the fact that they don't have a relationship to themselves. Um, and so they start to kind of worship isolation in order to get over the problem. But the problem is still there. They're still lonely and they're still sad. Um, and then you have the other side of the coin where people start to worship women, and they become like liberal feminists. Um, and then they think that's going to cure the isolation. But it seems like I'm in like the 0.1% of society who just isolate, who's just naturally isolated. It's what I've always done since I was little. It's what makes sense to me. I'm I just feel more at home when I'm by myself. I like getting work done. I think that's what describes me pretty well, is that it's been consistent all throughout my channel, even on my blog before I was really making consistent YouTube videos. I've always said the same thing. I like to work. I like to just be by myself and work. And the idea of being in a relationship, if I can't have that personal space, if I can't have that personal freedom that's tied to being by myself, then I'd rather not have that kind of relationship at all. And I think people understand this, but if you don't understand this, I mean, there's just not anything that I can do. It's not my problem at that point. Um, and so I don't know. I really don't know. Like, going to school has been such an eye-opening experience, because I remember what I was like in school. Um, but now with the knowledge that I have now, and going there every day as an older person and really thinking about it, seeing the consistencies in how I've always acted over the years, and putting all of the pieces together, it's given me a lot to think about. It's given me a lot of different routes that I could potentially see. That's what this channel is that this channel is the process of someone trying to figure themselves out. It's not always concrete statements. There are concrete statements that I have made, but that's only because those statements are built out of consistency, things that have always been true. But those statements are, one thing. It's a matter of trying to figure out the specific parts that's always hard, because when I try to figure out the specific parts, I end up reframing things or changing an idea every couple of months, and this channel sort of works as a way for me to figure those specific parts out, to try and unwind and figure out exactly what's going on in my head. I'd like to speak with a psychiatrist so I can try and figure out, why I am this way. Just as an intellectual curiosity, because I don't know how many other people are like me, and I want to understand it. So hopefully one of these days I can speak to someone, because I never really got a proper psychiatric evaluation. Like, they told me I might have schizoaffective disorder, which is basically mood disorder symptoms with schizophrenia symptoms. It's a psychotic disorder. But they said I might have that. Um, I I wasn't given a proper diagnosis. I was just kind of given a bunch of different medications because I kept moving to different states. I could never get a proper psych eval. So maybe if I get a psych eval, I'll know what's going on up there. So I know psychosis can have some of these weird kind of idiosyncratic weird beliefs going on, um, and just how you interface with the world, it changes it. So maybe that's a reason, but I really don't know what I have. And human beings are so complicated that it's really hard to understand all of the moving parts sometimes. But if there is one thing that I do know for sure that I've been able to track, is that the line of solitary behavior has remained in place, and the likelihood of it moving seems to be on the low side, given just how consistent it has been, and how much more fulfilled I feel by it. That's the difference between me and, one of the incel MGTOW guys, is that they can get on this train of self-delusion and say, I want to be isolated forever, but for many of them it's just a way of dealing with how sad they are on the inside and how lonely and afraid they are. Um, I don't really feel those things, and I don't have a motivation to lie about it to myself, and so it's really odd.